Every empire swore its money was safe. Every generation believed their savings would last. And every time, history proved them wrong. From the Byzantine Empire's golden solidus to the frozen banks of modern Lebanon, the story of money is also the story of trust, illusion, and collapse. This is not financial advice. This is financial education through the eyes of history. We'll uncover the timeless lessons of every economic downfall. Why promises printed on paper vanish, why debt traps destroy nations, why too big to fail is a lie, and why real wealth is built on what cannot be printed: skills, production, assets, and liquidity. If you want to understand money and power, if you want to see the patterns of failure that humanity keeps repeating, if you want to know what really survives collapse, this is the story you need to hear. For nearly 700 years, the Byzantine solidus, a small gold coin, was the most trusted currency in the known world. It was so stable that merchants from Venice to Baghdad accepted it without question. It didn't just buy goods, it bought trust. But that trust was a fragile illusion. As the empire aged, wars multiplied. Armies had to be paid, walls rebuilt, officials bribed, gold reserves ran thin. So emperors did what rulers always do when gold runs out: they began to cheat. They shaved a little metal off the coin. They mixed in a bit of copper. Slowly, the solidus lost its soul. What had once been 24 carats of pure gold became 20, then 18, then 12. Prices rose. Confidence fell. By the 11th century, the Byzantine currency, the symbol of stability, had collapsed into worthless alloy. The empire followed soon after. When trust in money breaks, power doesn't fade slowly. It implodes. The Byzantines learned the first law of money. No currency can outlive the honesty of its issuer. In the 14th century, a new force reshaped the economy of Europe: not greed, but death. The Black Death swept across the continent, killing nearly half of its population. Labor vanished overnight. Farms went fallow, trade collapsed, but amid the horror, something unexpected happened. Workers gained power. With so few people left, labor became valuable. Peasants demanded higher wages. Lords who once ruled over them had to bargain. Gold didn't change hands, but value did. When populations shrink, productivity and skill become priceless. The people who could grow food, forge metal, and rebuild cities became the new rich. And when the plague ended, the social order of Europe was forever altered. Wealth is not what you have, it's what you can do. Money dies. Skills survive. The Black Death showed that the truest form of wealth is not stored in vaults it walks, it thinks, it creates. Jump forward 5 centuries. The United States is torn apart by civil war. The Union and the Confederacy both needed money fast. Gold and silver were scarce, so each side turned to paper. The North issued greenbacks. The South printed Confederate dollars. Both promised redemption someday, somehow, in gold. But as the war dragged on, so did the printing presses. Inflation skyrocketed. In the South, prices doubled, tripled, then exploded. Soldiers' pay was worthless before it reached home. By the war's end, Confederate money was nothing but ink on paper, souvenirs of a dream that died. Paper promises last only as long as victory does. When a government's survival is uncertain, so is its money. Currencies are not backed by gold or silver, they're backed by trust. And trust can burn faster than paper. Revolutions promise freedom, but they're expensive. In 1789, the French Revolution overthrew a king and inherited his debts. The new republic needed cash, fast. So they created the assignat paper money backed by confiscated church lands. It seemed clever. Issue currency today, sell land tomorrow. At first, it worked. Confidence soared. The economy revived. But soon, the government printed more, not because they had land to sell, but because they had bills to pay. The assignat multiplied. Prices exploded. Bread that once cost 1 livre cost 1,000. Merchants refused paper and demanded gold. Farmers hoarded grain. The revolution ate itself. By 1796, the assignat was worthless. People used it as wallpaper or kindling. When money dies, morality often follows. Corruption, chaos, and tyranny always fill the vacuum left by economic collapse. The 19th century gave birth to modern finance banks, bonds, credit, and central banks. For the first time, nations could borrow vast sums, fueling railroads, factories, and wars. Debt was no longer a curse. It was the bloodstream of progress. But the new machine had a flaw. It depended on eternal growth. If economies slowed, debt couldn't be paid. If banks failed, confidence cracked. When the Panic of 1873 hit, it spread like a contagion across continents. Stock markets crashed, banks folded, millions lost their savings. It was the first global financial crisis, a preview of what the world would face again and again. Debt is the fuel of expansion and the spark of collapse. Every empire of credit eventually reaches the same limit. You can T-borrow your way to stability. The 20th century made money more abstract than ever. Stocks, bonds, derivatives, layers of promises built on promises. The Roaring Twenties believed in endless growth. Then came 1929. Markets collapsed. Banks failed. Millions lost everything. In Germany, economic ruin opened the door to dictatorship. Across the world, the Great Depression taught a brutal lesson. When speculation replaces production, collapse is not a question of if but when. Later, the world rebuilt, but not the lesson. By the 1990s, Asia's miracle economies were booming. Then, in 1997, capital fled overnight. Currencies collapsed. Governments fell. People lined up at empty ATMs. The Asian financial crisis showed that even in a globalized world, trust could vanish with a single headline. Liquidity is a mirage until you need it. The money you think you have only matters if you can use it when it matters most. In modern Lebanon, decades of corruption and mismanagement turned a banking paradise into a nightmare. For years, Lebanese banks offered high interest rates, attracting billions from abroad. But it was a pyramid scheme disguised as stability. In 2019, the system collapsed. Banks closed their doors, withdrawals were frozen, savings disappeared overnight, families who had worked a lifetime couldn't pay rent, buy medicine, or feed their children. Not because their accounts were empty, but because they were locked. Money in the bank is not wealth. It's a promise, and promises can break. The Lebanese crisis is not unique. It's the modern echo of every collapse before it. Technology changes, human behavior doesn't. In 2008, the global financial system froze. Banks had created mountains of toxic debt, betting on the illusion that housing prices could never fall. When they did, the world's largest institutions teetered on the edge of oblivion. Governments stepped in. Bailouts saved the banks, but not the people. Unemployment soared, homes were lost, trust shattered, and yet the system survived. Or so it seemed. If a company is too big to fail, it's too big to exist. Instead of learning restraint, the world doubled down on leverage, more debt, more printing, more promises. The cycle didn't end in 2008. It merely reset the clock. Today, money has almost no physical form. It's digits on screens, code in servers, promises in cyberspace. Cryptocurrencies challenge the old systems, decentralized, borderless, finite. Central banks respond with digital currencies of their own. But the question remains, has human nature changed? A new medium doesn't erase old mistakes. Whether printed or programmed, money is still trust. And trust, once lost, cannot be rebooted. Technology can change the form of money, but not its essence. As we move into the digital age, the same dangers lurk: greed, overconfidence, the belief that this time is different. It never is. across every collapse from Byzantium to Beirut, for constants have sustained those who endured first, skills. When money fails, those who can do something still thrive. Farmers, builders, makers, healers, their value never collapses. Second, production. Real wealth comes from creating, not consuming. Every crisis resets value around tangible output: food, tools, energy, ideas. Third, assets. Land, metals, machinery, and intellectual property outlast paper. Ownership of productive things endures beyond inflation. Fourth, liquidity. Access, not accumulation, is what matters when systems freeze. Cash, barter, mobility, and networks, the ability to move wealth, is as vital as having it. In every collapse, survivors share one trait: adaptability. They understood that money is not wealth. It's a temporary language for measuring it. When the language breaks, the meaning remains in what you can do, own, and create. From the Byzantines to Bitcoin, humanity has lived through the same cycle. Stability, excess, corruption, collapse, reform, repeat. Every generation believes the cycle has ended. Every generation is wrong. We invent new systems, new currencies, new technologies, yet the underlying flaw remains human: greed, fear, denial. History doesn't repeat, human nature does. Money is a mirror. It reflects who we are, our values, our discipline, our delusions. When it breaks, it doesn't just expose the economy, it exposes us. In the ashes of every financial collapse, life goes on. Fields are replanted, markets reopen, families rebuild, empires fall, currencies die, but humanity persists. The lesson is simple, but eternal. Real wealth is not what you own, but what you can keep when the system fails. The people who endure are on T, those with the biggest accounts. They read those with the most resilience, creativity, and community. True wealth is measured not in numbers, but in freedom. Freedom from debt, freedom from dependence, freedom to adapt. When money dies, value returns to its roots in labor, resourcefulness, and trust between people. Each collapse writes a warning for the next generation. Most ignore it, a few listen. You are living in a world built on promises of growth, stability, and endless credit. If history has taught us anything, it's this: no empire, no government, no central bank has ever escaped the consequences of excess, but individuals can. By learning the lessons of the past, by building skills that endure, by owning what is real, by remembering that the map is not the territory in, money is not wealth. Every empire swore its money was safe. Every generation believed their savings would last. And every time, history proved them wrong. But those who understood what truly survives, they didn't just outlive the collapse. They built the world that came after. What survives when money dies? A financial history for those who want to see what's coming next.